The autumn rain drummed against the windows of the Whitmore mansion as mourners filled the grand parlor. Victoria Whitmore stood alone near the casket, her black dress simple compared to the designer outfits worn by her late husband's family. She clutched a single white rose, the same flower Marcus had given her on their first date 15 years ago. "I can't believe she has the audacity to be here," hissed Cordelia Whitmore, Marcus's sister, loud enough for Victoria to hear. "After everything she's put this family through." Victoria's mother-in-law, Beatrice Whitmore, swept across the room like a storm cloud. At 72, she commanded respect through sheer presence and old money authority, her cold gray eyes fixed on Victoria with undisguised contempt. "We need to talk," Beatrice announced, her voice cutting through the subdued conversations. "Privately." The family library smelled of leather and old secrets. Beatrice positioned herself behind Marcus's mahogany desk, while his brother Theodore and sister Cordelia flanked Victoria like sentries. Their spouses, Hampton and Vivian, watched from the doorway with barely concealed anticipation. "Let's dispense with pleasantries," Beatrice began, her manicured fingers drumming against the desk. "You were married to my son for a mere 5 years. This family has owned Whitmore Industries for 3 generations. You have no claim to our legacy." Victoria's hands trembled as she set down her purse. "Marcus was my husband. I loved him." "Love," Cordelia scoffed, adjusting her pearl necklace. "You were a secretary when he met you, a nobody from nowhere who saw dollar signs." Theodore stepped forward, his expensive suit intimidating in the dim light. "Mother's being generous by even acknowledging your presence. You should be grateful. We allowed you at the funeral." "The will reading is tomorrow," Hampton added from the doorway, his voice dripping with smugness. "After that, you'll have no reason to associate with this family." Beatrice stood slowly, her silk dress rustling. "I suggest you use tonight to pack whatever personal belongings Marcus foolishly allowed you to accumulate. Tomorrow, after the formalities, you'll leave this house and never return." Victoria felt the walls closing in. These people had tolerated her presence while Marcus was alive, but barely. She'd always known they considered her an outsider, but she'd hoped grief might soften their hearts. "Where am I supposed to go?" Victoria whispered. "That's hardly our concern," Vivian said coldly. "Perhaps you should have thought of that before. You trapped our Marcus with your charms." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Victoria had heard the whispers for years, that she'd gotten pregnant deliberately to secure her marriage, only to miscarry months later. The loss had devastated both her and Marcus, but his family had always viewed it with suspicion. "You have until tomorrow evening," Beatrice declared with finality. "Don't make this more unpleasant than necessary." As Victoria left the library, she heard Cordelia's triumphant laughter echoing behind her. She climbed the grand staircase to the bedroom she'd shared with Marcus, already feeling like a ghost haunting someone else's life. Attorney Harrison Blackwell adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses as the Whitmore family assembled in the same library where Victoria had been dismissed the night before. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Persian rug, and the tension in the room was palpable. Victoria sat in a corner chair, having been grudgingly allowed to attend. Her small suitcase waited by the front door, a stark reminder of her expected departure. The family occupied the prime seating like vultures circling prey. "Before we begin," Beatrice announced, smoothing her black St. John's suit, "I want everyone to understand that this is merely a formality. Marcus may have been, sentimental in his final days, but the family trust and business interests remain protected." Mr. Blackwell cleared his throat uncomfortably. He'd been the family attorney for 20 years and had never seen Beatrice this confident about something that hadn't been discussed with him first. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering. Marcus Whitmore's will is quite comprehensive, so please bear with me." He broke the wax seal and unfolded several thick documents. I'll begin with the smaller bequests and work toward the major provisions. Theodore leaned back smugly. Get on with it, Harrison. We all know how this ends. The attorney's voice was steady as he read, To my sister Cordelia, I leave my collection of rare books, valued at approximately $50,000. Cordelia smiled tightly. It was less than she'd expected, but Marcus had always been peculiar about money. To my brother Theodore, I leave my vintage car collection and the sum of $100,000. Theodore's face darkened. $100,000 was pocket change for a Whitmore. This is ridiculous. What about his shares in the company? Please, let me continue, Mr. Blackwell said, his discomfort growing. To various cousins and extended family members, Marcus has left monetary gifts totaling $500,000. The room erupted in whispers. These were generous amounts, but they barely scratched the surface of Marcus's wealth. Whitmore Industries alone was worth hundreds of millions. Hampton shifted in his chair. What about the primary estate? The business holdings? Mr. Blackwell's hands shook slightly as he turned to the final page. This is where things become unusual. Marcus made some significant changes to his will 6 months ago, just after his cancer diagnosis. Impossible, Beatrice snapped. I would have known. I'm the family matriarch. Actually, Mrs. Whitmore, he specifically requested that these changes remain confidential until this moment. The attorney's voice grew stronger as he continued. Regarding the Whitmore mansion, all real estate holdings, the family business, investment portfolios, and all remaining assets. The silence was deafening. Victoria found herself holding her breath, knowing whatever came next would seal her fate. Marcus Whitmore leaves everything, and I mean everything, to his beloved wife, Victoria Whitmore, with one very specific condition. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. This is preposterous! Theodore jumped to his feet. That gold digger manipulated him while he was dying. The condition, Mr. Blackwell continued, raising his voice above the chaos, is that Victoria must choose to either keep everything herself or distribute it among the family members present. She has 24 hours to decide. Victoria's world tilted on its axis. Yesterday she was being thrown out with nothing. Today she owned everything and held the power to change all their lives forever. The Whitmore family sat in stunned silence as the full weight of Marcus's will settled over them. Victoria remained frozen in her chair, unable to process that she now controlled the fortune that had defined this family for generations. This is legally impossible, Cordelia sputtered, her usual composure completely shattered. Family wealth can't just be given away to an outsider. Mr. Blackwell removed another document from his briefcase. Actually, there's more. Marcus also left a personal letter for Victoria to be read privately. However, he included instructions for me to share certain facts with the family. Beatrice's face had gone ashen. What facts? The Whitmore family trust that you all believed controlled the majority assets? Marcus dissolved it 3 years ago and transferred everything into his personal name. He had every legal right to dispose of his wealth as he saw fit. But why? Hampton demanded, his voice cracking. Why would he destroy the family legacy? Victoria finally found her voice. What letter? Mr. Blackwell handed her a sealed envelope with her name written in Marcus's familiar handwriting. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal and began to read silently. My dearest Victoria, if you're reading this, then my family has shown their true colors. I've watched them treat you with contempt for years, believing you were beneath them. They never saw what I saw, your kindness, your strength, your genuine heart. I know they think you married me for money. The truth is, I fell in love with the woman who brought soup to her elderly neighbor every week and tutored children for free at the community center. You never asked me for anything except love. The choice I'm giving you isn't really about money. It's about who you are. I believe you'll make the right decision, whatever that may be." Victoria's eyes filled with tears as she continued reading. There's something else they don't know. When Theodore embezzled $2 million from the company last year, I covered it up to protect the family name. When Cordelia's gambling debts threatened to expose her husband's law firm to scandal, I paid them off. When Hampton's pharmaceutical company was sued for price gouging, I hired the legal team that saved his reputation. I've been protecting them for years, while they treated my wife like dirt. The mansion they think belongs to the family? I bought it from the bank when they couldn't make payments during the 2008 recession. The business they consider their birthright? I saved it from bankruptcy twice with my personal investments. They owe everything to my generosity, not their heritage. Victoria looked up at the faces surrounding her, faces that had shown her nothing but disdain, now watching her with desperate fear. "You manipulated him," Beatrice accused, but her voice lacked its usual authority. "He was sick, confused by medication." "Actually," Mr. Blackwell interjected, "Marcus was completely lucid when he made these changes. I have medical documentation confirming his mental competency as required by law." Theodore began pacing frantically. "Victoria, be reasonable. You don't understand business. You can't just own everything overnight." "Why not?" Victoria asked quietly, surprising herself with her calm tone. "You all assumed I was too stupid to understand money when I was organizing charity fundraisers that raised millions, when I managed the household budget of this mansion flawlessly for 5 years, when I helped Marcus make investment decisions that you all benefited from." Cordelia's voice turned pleading. "We're family. Blood family." Victoria stood slowly, Marcus's letter still in her hands. "Yes, you are. And Marcus was my family, too. My husband, the man you all treated like an ATM, while treating his wife like garbage." For the first time in years, Victoria felt powerful. Tomorrow's decision would change everything. Victoria spent the evening alone in the mansion, walking through rooms that suddenly felt different. Every painting, every piece of furniture, every family heirloom was now hers to keep or give away. The weight of such power was overwhelming. She made her way to Marcus's study, where his presence still lingered in the scent of his cologne and the half-finished chess game on his desk. A photo of their wedding day sat prominently on the bookshelf, her radiant smile contrasting with the forced smiles of his family in the background. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from the Whitmores. First came threats from Theodore about legal challenges, then tearful voicemails from Cordelia about family loyalty, followed by formal requests from Beatrice about proper procedures. Hampton sent a business proposal about maintaining Whitmore Industries' family management, while Vivian tried emotional manipulation about the children's college funds. Victoria turned off her phone and opened Marcus's private safe using the combination he'd taught her years ago, their anniversary date. Inside, she found more letters addressed to her, organized by date. The first letter was from shortly after their marriage. "Victoria, if something happens to me, know that you brought joy back into my life. My family sees weakness in kindness and money in relationships, but you showed me that real wealth is having someone who loves you for who you are, not what you can provide." Another letter, dated 2 years later. "I watched Mother criticize your dress at the charity gala tonight, and I felt ashamed, not of you, of myself for not defending you more strongly. You organized an event that raised $500,000 for children's hospitals, and she complained about your modest appearance. You have more class in your little finger than they have combined." The final letter was dated just 6 months ago. "My diagnosis has clarified everything. I'm changing my will not out of spite, but out of love. I want to give you the choice they never gave you. The choice to be generous or protect yourself, to forgive or seek justice. Whatever you decide, I'll be proud of you." Victoria wiped away tears as footsteps echoed in the hallway. Beatrice appeared in the doorway, looking smaller and more fragile than Victoria had ever seen her. "May I come in?" Victoria nodded, gesturing to the chair across from Marcus's desk. "I owe you an apology," Beatrice began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Several apologies, actually." "Do you?" "I was protecting my family the only way I knew how. When you came into Marcus's life, I saw a threat to everything we'd built. I was wrong about your motivations, but I was terrified of losing control." Victoria studied her mother-in-law's face, seeing vulnerability for the first time. "You made my life hell for 5 years." "Yes, I did. And I'm sorry." Beatrice's composure finally cracked. "We're going to lose everything, aren't we?" "I don't know yet. The others are downstairs, arguing about lawsuits and appeals. But I know my son. If he gave you this choice, he trusted you to make it wisely." Beatrice stood to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth, Victoria, I think you would have been good for this family if we'd let you." After Beatrice left, Victoria sat in the growing darkness, surrounded by the legacy of a man who had loved her enough to give her ultimate power over those who had made her feel powerless. Tomorrow would bring her answer. But tonight, she finally understood Marcus's final gift. The Whitmore family gathered in the library at exactly 10 a.m., their usual arrogance replaced by barely concealed desperation. Victoria entered wearing a simple navy dress, not the designer clothes they'd always criticized her for lacking, but the kind of understated elegance that spoke to her true character. Mr. Blackwell shuffled his papers nervously. 24 hours ago, this had been a routine will reading. Now it felt like a trial where the verdict could destroy or redeem an entire family. "Have you reached your decision, Mrs. Whitmore?" he asked formally. Victoria looked around the room at each face. Theodore, whose embezzlement Marcus had covered up, now sweated profusely. Cordelia, whose gambling debts had been quietly erased, picked at her manicured nails. Hampton and Vivian, saved from pharmaceutical lawsuits by Marcus's money, avoided eye contact entirely. Only Beatrice met her gaze directly, resignation and regret written across her weathered features. "I have," Victoria said, her voice clear and steady. "But first, I want to say something." She pulled out her phone and began reading from notes she'd written during her sleepless night. "For 5 years, you made me feel like I didn't belong. You questioned my motives, mocked my background, and treated me like a gold digger who'd trapped your precious Marcus. You never once considered that maybe, just maybe, he chose me because I made him happy." Theodore shifted uncomfortably. "Victoria, we understand you're upset, but I'm not finished." Victoria's voice carried newfound authority. "Marcus told me about Theodore's missing $2 million, about Cordelia's gambling debts that nearly destroyed Hampton's law practice, about the pharmaceutical lawsuits that could have bankrupted you all." The color drained from their faces as their carefully hidden secrets tumbled into the open. "He protected you because he loved his family, even when that family treated his wife like dirt, even when you all assumed you were entitled to his generosity, while showing me none." Beatrice closed her eyes. "What's your decision?" Victoria stood, walking to the window that overlooked the gardens where she and Marcus had spent countless peaceful afternoons. "I'm keeping it all." The silence that followed was deafening. "However," Victoria continued, turning back to face them, "I'm not keeping it for myself. I'm establishing the Marcus Whitmore Foundation for families struggling with medical debt and children aging out of foster care. The mansion will become a retreat center for cancer patients and their families." Cordelia gasped. "You're giving it all away?" "To people who actually need it, yes. People Marcus would have wanted to help." Victoria's smile was serene. "You'll each receive a monthly allowance, enough to live comfortably, but not extravagantly. Consider it Marcus's final gift and my first act of mercy. She picked up her purse and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Beatrice called after her. "Home," Victoria replied. "To the little apartment where Marcus and I were truly happy, before money and mansions complicated everything." As she walked away from the Whitmore mansion for the last time, Victoria felt Marcus's presence in the autumn breeze, and she knew she'd made the choice that would have made him proud.